Welcome to the future of Israel and the Jewish people. I'm Frank Caporale, your host for tonight. We're studying the book of Job. We've been studying the book of Job for weeks. It's one of the first books of the Bible. It was recorded hundreds of years later. Job was probably a contemporary of Abraham, very righteous man in the east, maybe from Iran or Iraq area. We're with our good friend, John Genoese. Welcome, John, again.
Hi, Frank. Nice to be here.
Good.
Thanks
Job 20.
Thanks for inviting me.
Got anything to say before you start to read, Joe?
No, sir. I just want to. We'll get right into it.
Good.
There's a lot here. This is. Well, I
Maybe
thought
I should say to the audience that might be watching for the first time. The book of Job is really about a man who was very righteous, and the devil convinced God, or at least challenged God, I should say, to allow him to aggravate this poor man by not only taking his possessions, his children, and even right down to his health to see if he would curse God. And God had the knowledge that nothing would disturb Job from his faith in him. So why don't we go from there?
Okay, we'll just begin. This is another one of Job's friends that are speaking. He says, Zophar the Naamathite answered, "Therefore my disquieting thoughts make me respond. Even because of my inward agitation, I listen to the reproof which insults me, and the spirit of my understanding makes me answer. Do you know this from of old, from the establishment of man on earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless momentary? Though his loftiness reaches the heavens and his head touches the clouds, he perishes forever like his refuse." Oh my goodness. "Those who have seen him will say, 'Where is he?' He flies away like a dream, and they can't find him. Even like a vision of the night, he is chased away. The eye which saw him sees him no longer in his place, no longer beholds him. His sons favor the poor." It's an interesting line. "His sons favor the poor, and his hands give back his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but it lies down with him in the dust. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, and he hides it under his tongue, though he desires it and will not let it go, but holds it in his mouth, yet his food in his stomach is changed in the venom of cobras within him. He swallows riches, but will vomit them up. God will expel them from his belly. He sucks the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue slays him. He doesn't look at the streams of the rivers flowing with honey and curds. He returns what he has attained and cannot swallow it. As to the riches of his trading, he cannot even enjoy them, for he has oppressed and forsaken the poor, and has seized a house which he has not built. Because he knew no quiet within him, he does not retain anything he desires. Nothing remains for him to devour. Therefore his prosperity does not endure. In the fullness of his plenty he will be cramped. The hand of everyone who suffers will come against him when he fills his belly. God will send his fierce anger on him, and it will rain on him while he is eating." What a horrifying thing to say. And we'll go into why. "He may flee from the iron weapon, but the bronze bow will pierce him. It is drawn forth and comes out his back, even its glittering point from his gall. Terrors come upon him, complete darkness is held in reserve for his treasures, and unfanned fire will devour him. It will consume the survivor in his tent. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, the earth will rise up against him, the increase of his house will depart, his possessions will flow away in the day of his anger. This is the wicked man's portion from God, even the heritage decreed to him by God."
Well, you know, if people read this and take it as their doctrine, they would be in such error, it's unbelievable. Because we've seen millions of people doing terrible things, gaining wealth, never really paying for the crime they committed. You know, and yet walking away free in some cases from doing horrible things that cause other people to lose their fortunes and everything else. And judgment doesn't always come immediately. And they're acting like you're not going to be able to enjoy anything you gained. Well, it's true, because guilt and shame comes with it. But this guy makes it seem like they're just going to be swept out of the way. We're going to see them burn up in front of us, that we're going to be standing on solid ground and they're going to be swept away. Okay? On a spiritual basis, it might be true, but not on a physical and worldly basis. What do you think, John?
Well, I don't have as much of a problem with his oversimplification of it. I have a real problem with who he's saying it to.
Yeah.
And the spirit in which it's being said, and the cruelty with which it's being said,
Yes.
because he himself is triggered.
Yeah. Yeah.
My disquieting thoughts make me respond even because of my inward agitation. What's happening to Job and Job's interpretation of it is triggering this man, because Job is challenging the oversimplification of his system of things. So what is he? So listen to some of the things that he says. Okay, his sons favor the poor, which means that the substance of his sons is taken from his sons and given to the poor, is what he's really trying to say. His hands give back his wealth, and all that.
Well, you know, that's somewhat true in some cases. You know, these guys have created great dynasties, okay, in evil ways. You know, we think of organized crime and so on, but many times, okay, they think they're mounting up all of this for their sons and grandchildren, and it is taken away sometimes.
Sometimes it is, but look at the circumstances of the man they're saying this to. He's sitting on a dung heap, scraping his boils with a potsherd, having lost his 10 children and everything that meant anything to him in life, and his wife telling him, refuting everything she knows this man to be, saying, curse God and die. And he has to say, are you going to be like one of them? And this is who they're saying. And again, how does he end? How does he end? He says, this is the wicked man's portion from God, even the heritage decreed to him by God. So he's saying, Job, God did this to you because you were wicked.
Well, before we go any further with this chapter, I guess we got to come back to the beginning of what he says. And he's saying that he's trying to sit quietly, I believe, and not respond.
Yes.
But then something triggers him, okay, and he can't help himself. And what we believe will do that sometimes. And, you know, even if we know the truth, it might not be the time to speak it because of the pain of the victim, you know? I mean, you don't go to somebody who's lost part of his lung and just walk in the hospital and say to him, see, I told you you should have stopped smoking. It was inevitable it was going to happen to you. Why bother to go at all? He's going to feel guilty just seeing you if he remembers that you were on his case to give up smoking, okay? You know, why not try to encourage people and give them hope after they've suffered loss? And it's meaningful to go back and forth and back and forth. Timing is everything, and they have no sense of timing. Sure, they waited for their turn to speak, but they would have been better to remain silent like they did at the beginning, okay? But it's hard sometimes to listen to people who go on and on and on and on and on and on, and even though you know they're right. And that's why, unfortunately, a lot of people who suffer don't have a lot of friends, because the average person can't handle it. they look at it and say, gee, God forbid that would happen to me. Or, I don't know what I would do if it did happen to me, you know. And John, I tell this all the time to people, don't worry about that. That's the enemy trying to get you to worry about something that may never happen to you, okay? But if it does happen to you, the same grace that is given to Job will be given to you if you're trusting in God to get you through it, not try to go around it, underneath it, you know, run away from it. So, okay, well, you got anything else to say about 20?
I do. But not so much about this as something in response to what you said. What is the motivation? Because I think it speaks to the motivation of Job's friends as this process, as we go through this process, and it's wearing on all of the individuals, and all of the facade starts to wear away because it requires tremendous energy to maintain a facade. And these gentlemen sat with him for 7 days, and they just wore out. They had to listen to him. After 7 days, he began to pour out his complaint, and it kind of wore away their good intentions, you know. And sometimes good intentions kind of stay on the surface. They're not really where you're at. So when somebody walks into a hospital room of a person that just had a lung removed and said, you see, I told you you were supposed to quit smoking. What are they looking for? What's the purpose of them doing that? It can't possibly be to edify the person who just had the lung removed. It can't be about that, because that's just common sense. It's not going to do them any good now. So why? Why do it?
Well, I think, especially when it's a close relative, our motives aren't good many times.
Many times.
Okay, what it is that we're not so much concerned about their life, although we are, but not primary, but secondary.
Amen.
Primary is don't make a problem for me. So if I'm married to you and you die, you're going to leave me a widow or a widower, okay? If you're my business partner, you're going to affect my livelihood, okay? See, so those are the wrong motives, okay? What can I tell you?
Well,
it's human nature that
true.
And it's motivated by self-centeredness, selfishness, bitterness, anger, and you're not listening to me. So that means you're not respecting me, and therefore you're actually, by not respecting me and listening to me, you're really doing what? Denying what I know to be true, to be true.
Challenging my worth. You're challenging my validity. So now you getting a lung removed is validation for me.
Yeah.
And how horrifying it is that actually takes place. And now, so there's a couple of things. It could be validation for me. It could be that Job's friends coveted his position, and there's a part of them that's in glee over that because they felt inferior to him, because this is a man we know is extremely unique on the face of the earth. And so everybody had to have felt at least a little uncomfortable around this man because he had something that nobody else had.
Yep.
And so, wow, he's down on our level now, and so this is validation for them, because all those years of feeling inferior, all those years of feeling they didn't measure up to him, he had more than they did, he had more of everything than they did, and so this is an opportunity. I'm not saying I can't prove that, but it's all too human, and it's being spelled out right in front of me. And it seems to be consistent with, when they start speaking, they always say, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but. There's always that but.
Which validates everything you said before.
Right, that's right. It kind of says, but means forget everything I said before. Because
I love you, I care about you, but
okay.
You didn't listen to me.
Well, that covers chapter 20 for me, but let's just point out that the truths that are uncovered by us as we're talking about this is because we're putting the time and looking at this as the inspired Word of God, which has something to say to us right here, right now. And I would put forth that when it's treated this way, with this kind of respect, with this, that it has value, that anybody is going to open this book, begin to read it, and understand. And it's not just for Job, it's for every book here, that these are life-changing truths. And we see all of you, even in the first book in the Bible, the first, not the first book in order of the way they're recorded, but first chronologically, that God is telling us the adventure of humanity is an adventure, and it's not going to be easy to figure out.
It's a challenge.
You're not going to be able to reduce it like fractions to lowest terms and solve it like a mathematical equation or balance this chemical equation or something like that. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be bigger than you know, wilder than you know, but it's here. It's here. And if we take time over it, we're going to be enriched by it.
Well, you know, this was not the original plan of God for us, okay? But, you know, when you read Genesis 3, chapter 3, and you see what Adam and Eve did and how they lost what they should have had, which was dominion over everything, now they're being subject to someone who's trying to steal everything from us. And therefore, we're under a conflict. He hates God. He hates us. He's jealous of what we have, and he is just raising havoc. And you see this in human nature. I mean, you know, you promote somebody. Joseph's a good example. You know, God anointed him for a tremendous service to the children of Israel, and, you know, 11 of his brothers or 10 of his brothers hated him, okay? Only Benjamin was the only one, which was his full brother, that probably didn't.
Amen.
All right, let's move on. We're going to Job 21, and it's a long book, but it's worth discussing when we look at what we discover about ourselves and human nature and how we don't want to fall into the trap that these people did. The first thing we should think about when somebody's having trouble is, God, help me not to be Job's friend.
Yeah, that I might not cause, what was it?
May not
prayer
cause
that
sin.
it may not cause pain.
Yeah.
It may not cause pain.
That's Jaber. You know, expand my territories.
That's right, the prayer of Jabez, that's right.
But that I may not cause pains. And you know, Jaber in Hebrew means pain. So he didn't want to live up to his name. Go ahead. 21.
Then Job answered. He's answering Zophar now.
I'm surprised he's still talking to him.
He can't let it go. He just can't lay down and accept it. Then Job answered, listen carefully to my speech, and let this be your way of consolation, or let this be your consolation. Bear with me that I may speak, then after I have spoken, you may mock. As for me, is my complaint to man? Why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be astonished, and put your hand over your mouth. Even when I remember, I am disturbed, and horror takes hold of my flesh. Why do the wicked still live, continue on, become very powerful? Their descendants are established within them, and their descendants are established with them in their sight. Their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear. The rod of God is not on them. His ox mates without fail. His cow calves and does not abort. They send forth their little ones like the flock, and their children skip about. They sing to the timbrel, the harp, rejoice at the sound of the flute, spend their days in prosperity, and suddenly they go down to Sheol. They say to God, depart from us. We do not even desire knowledge of your ways. Who is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what would we gain if we entreat him? Behold, their prosperity is not in their hand, and the counsel of the wicked is far from me. How often the lamp of the wicked put out, Or does their calamity fall on them? Does God apportion destruction in his anger? Are they as straw before the wind, like chaff which the storm carries away? You say, God stores away a man's iniquity for his sons. Well, let God repay him so that he may know it. Let his own eyes see the decay. Let him drink of the wrath of the Almighty. What does he care for his household after him, or the number of his months is cut off? Can anyone teach God knowledge, in that he judges those on high? One dies in his full strength, being wholly at ease and satisfied. His sides are filled out with fat, and the marrow of his bones is moist, while another dies with a bitter soul, never even tasting anything good. Together they lie down in the dust, worms cover them. And behold, I know your thoughts and plans by which you would wrong me. For you say, where is the house of the nobleman? Where is the tent? Where is the tent, the dwelling place of the wicked? Have you not asked wayfaring men? And do you not recognize their witness? For the wicked is reserved for the day of calamity. They will be led forth as the day of fury. Who will confront him with his actions? Who will repay him for what he has done? While he's carried to the grave, men will keep watch over his tomb. The clods of the valley will gently cover him. Moreover, all men will follow after him, while countless ones go before him. How then will you vainly comfort me, for your answers remain full of falsehood?
That we have to take literally. Verse 34. Your accusations are full with falsehood. And see, we're to seek truth. And you know, we do that in education. You know, you take math, you got to learn the formulas. You take science, you got to know the chemistry. You know, but when it comes to spirituality, lots of people don't even pay any attention to it. And they may not be as loud spoken as these wicked men were in saying God have nothing to do with us. You know, people will say, well, yeah, I believe there's a God somewhere. Or they'll say, well,
out there.
Yeah. Or,
away, far away.
You know, there's many different ways to God, this, that, and the other things. But they're almost pacifying us. They're not really willing to put the time in that they put in to get a master's degree in science. Or they're not willing to put in the time that they developed a career and became wealthy. And Job, in spite of the fact that he was the wealthiest man of his day, obviously did do that. He was probably so grateful. And see, the rabbi will tell you all the time, the beginning of spirituality is gratitude.
Amen.
Okay?
Profound.
So when you're grateful to God, what he's done for you, how he's done for you, these wicked men are acting more like we're watching The Godfather, okay? That they don't care for nothing, okay? You cross them, your history, okay? And we do see their children prosper. We do see them go to the best schools in the country. We do see them drive the best cars around, okay? But we don't envy the wicked, okay? Because their eyes are blocked from spiritual things. And that's what's really important. How we respond to the spiritual side of our life. You know, we're sitting on a chair with 4 legs that it supports us. Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Leave out one of them and we fall on our what? What do you got to say, John?
Wow. How this book portrays all of human nature. The good, the bad, the ugly.
And the misinformed.
And the misinformed. How accurate it is, and how little human nature has actually changed.
And how little people pay attention to this book, even Bible reading people.
It's a difficult book. It was even difficult. It's one of the most difficult books even to translate. A lot of the Hebrew in this book, I'm told, is extremely challenging, even for the most learned, the most erudite Hebrew scholars. This is a very challenging book. So it's because of its age. It's because how old it is.
Yeah.
And I
things that they refer to in here might have gone out of existence even.
I
Okay.
think that that's possible.
So
But
how
what
do
do you think of this, Frank? That Job, in the midst of his anguish, says, "Can anyone teach God in that he judges those on high?" And then he goes on to see how one dies in his fat, the other dies starving. He just, and yet, what I think Job is saying is that his friends are spouting these things as if they're oversimplifying things, misrepresenting things, and again he ends, right? Job ends his speech with, "How then will you vainly comfort me, for your answers remain full of falsehood?" And Job is telling them and informing them. And this, I believe, is something very significant. He's not just giving an opinion. There's something in there that tells me he's saying, you even know what you're saying isn't true. You're lying to me, and you know you're lying. You know you're not telling me the truth. You know that it's not as simple as you make it out. Yet you're here spouting this stuff, knowing it not to be true.
Well, I'll give you 2 examples of that. One is, which frustrates me tremendously, and that's when some people don't know what to say and they just keep talking. Okay, so as they go along, they're fabricating. And the other thing was, as we get close to the end of the show, I'll share my own personal experience. And we were driving, looking at real estate in Dallas one day, and the driver was, I guess, Protestant. At that time, I was in Catholicism, and the broker in the back from Baltimore was Jewish. And he kept quoting New Testament scriptures to me and asking me if they were true or right. And I say, yeah, you're right. That's what it says. That's what it says. And I found out later he went to a Quaker school, so he was well knowledgeable, even if he didn't believe. And when I said to the driver, who was Protestant, okay, well, what do you think about this, Mike? He said, oh, I don't talk about religion. So about a month or so later, I'm driving now, and we're running through Houston in rush hour, and I'm driving about 65 miles an hour on the loop. And I hear him go, in those days you didn't have to wear your seatbelt, but he put his on. And I said to him, anybody who sits in that seat is introduced to serious prayer. He said, I'm not afraid to die because Jesus is my Lord, he says. But I said, really? I almost drove off the road. When my Jewish friend was trying to talk scripture in the car with me, he was sort of insulted. And he said, I have been so blessed in this industry. I felt so guilty. I went back to church. My wife went back to church. The kids are in Sunday school. We've all been baptized and everything else. So there are times when people are extremely blessed and they come to know God in a minted way. And there are others that say, forget it. Okay? Just don't be that person that says, forget it. So join us for the next show as we continue with Job. Thefutureofisrael.org is our website. And if you want to communicate with us, write to Frank at thefutureofisrael.org. Have a good day. Please don't be Job's friends. The best thing you can do when you visit the sick is be silent and listen and answer their questions truthfully, not fabricate. Take care. Have a good evening. And be back next week. This gets better as it goes along. Take care.